Greetings, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Steve Woolidge. I'll be your host today from Arcadia Data, and I'm delighted to have one of our customers here, Neustar Market Share, who will be talking about how they've scaled their software as a service-based reporting and analytics for thousands of customer users across many different customers. I think it'll be very interesting both from a marketing and analytics perspective, but also in terms of a multi-tenant environment and all the things that they do to scale, not only from a performance perspective, but from a usability perspective. Our speakers today are myself and Huma Tahir, who's been with Neustar Market Share for over 8 years and is a senior architect at the organization. She'll start out and talk about all the things that they've done to build their system that provides value for their customers. And before I hand it over to Huma, just a quick couple housekeeping things. We will be taking questions along the way, so we'll have plenty of time at the end to answer those. So please type them into the chat window, or if you have a question box, you can put them in there. We'll pull those up and get to as many as we can at the end of the sessions. Please chat with us if you have any issues with audio, of course, and we will be recording this presentation so you can have an on-demand video of it, as well as the slides will also be available. And if you'd like to tweet, you can mention Arcadia Data and follow the conversation there. So with that, I'd like to turn things over to Huma Tahir. Thank you. And let me just change the controls. Sorry. Here we go. Sorry, Huma. I moved the slides there. You should have control now.
Thanks, Steve. Hello, everyone. This is Huma Tahir, and I'm an architect at Neustar Market Share. I'm going to start with an introduction to Neustar Market Share's product portfolio, and we will then deep dive into Arcadia's technological capability for Neustar Market Share stack and nuances on how we tailor Arcadia Data's offering to fit our somewhat unique requirements. The overall goal of Neustar Market Share product offering is to enable our enterprise clients to make their marketing spend-related business decisions based on the solid foundations of data-driven insights that are teased out of massive amounts of marketing data that they collect. We provide them the capability of doing this over the entire spectrum of marketing decision-making process, from direction setting or the strategic decisions based on ROI analysis of various marketing segments, to day-to-day tactical decisions, campaign and consumer engagement positioning decisions by the marketeers. As part of this analytics offering, we attempt to cover all factors, those that are direct and deliberate and recorded, like advertisement campaigns, to those that are indirect and environmental and unrecorded, like economy, offline campaigns, and other bulk factors in the general environment. Let's take a step back and take a look at the scope of the problem of marketing analytics. The marketing budget of a typical enterprise client runs in tens of millions at low end to a couple of billions at high end. There is an increasing pressure to justify and to be accountable for the decisions related to how this budget is being spent. The marketing touchpoints reaching a potential consumer have high dimensionality with all accompanying background noise of real-world data collection. There are data quality issues related to establishing identity, as there are multiple devices in play and data might be obfuscated due to regulatory requirements and privacy concerns, etc. There is partial information due to many interactions not recorded at all, duplication, low SNR, bots, etc. The value offered by any solution has to be delivered timely, as there is a shelf life for recommendations, and continuously. This is not a one-time delivery of insights. There is also a very high threshold for quality, reliability, and robustness of the recommendation. Our mission at Neustar Market Share is to drive marketing that makes a measurable difference. Our positioning is simple. We are the only unified analytics provider connected to a neutral DMP to deliver business value and superior customer experiences. We do this by having access and using privileged data, so you get a predictive, holistic, and accurate view of your customer, which is the foundation of people-based marketing. Different organizations take a wide array of approaches to sync their marketing mix modeling and attribution programs. Much of that difference in approach comes down to the way marketers build their marketing analytics stack. Some marketers employ completely unlinked marketing mix and attribution platforms and manually connect insights where relevant. At the other end of the spectrum, marketers utilize a single platform that brings marketing mix modeling and attribution into one system. Which approach is more effective? To answer this question, brands need to consider the fundamental interconnectedness of marketing investments. In marketing, no decision or insight takes place in isolation. Allocating more budget to TV may have huge implications for online performance. A highly effective social media program, for instance, may justify shifting budget to social outlets and away from radio or print. To make the right decisions, marketers need to understand the ripple effects any one set of marketing investments will have on all marketing for the brand. In a world of real-time decision-making and ongoing optimization, this means brands need to maintain a wide view of marketing effectiveness across strategy and tactics at all times. The more interconnected strategic insights are with tactical ones and offline analytics is with digital insights, the better these brands can orchestrate their decisions in complementary ways. Through shared insights, reporting, and workflow across these applications, the entire marketing program, from strategic decision makers to functional teams to automated buying platforms, can plan and execute in lockstep. Let's take a look at how Neustar market share is guiding business decisions. Marketing mix modeling, or MMM, works by looking at the bulk statistical relationships between the factors that influence sales and the actual outcomes they drive. MMM is then able to use those insights to predict what should happen if a marketer changes any of the investments in the marketing portfolio. But strategy alone will not drive sales. The right execution is critical. To implement strategies effectively across campaigns, placements, and creative, we need tactical insight on how to best put strategies into effect. For this, marketers look to multi-touch attribution, or MTA, which examines how specific consumer engagements impact sales and help marketers optimize interactions along the customer journey. Based on the answer to these and related questions, attribution helps marketing teams guide shorter-term media buying as well as certain creative decisions. It can also guide automated, programmatically purchased advertising as well. The analytical toolset at Neustar MarketShare provides three core capabilities. 1. Visual applications. Visual applications explain the impact of media on key business outcomes and evaluate the success of our clients' media campaigns. They include plain statistical metrics like the count of marketing touches, conversions, touched conversions, etc., and attribution-enriched KPI metrics like attribution by marketing segments or conversion classes, ROI, etc. 2. Recommendations. This provides the projected outcome for the client's current marketing plan with no adjustments and optimized outcome if one implements all recommended changes to marketing. We compute the projections and optimizations based on attribution KPIs at a very granular level. These are intended to provide reliable and robust directional guidance for immediate opportunities in marketing budget optimization. 3. Prescriptive analytics. This is the strategic long-term decision-making playboard to brainstorm competing strategic marketing by running them through what-if analysis to predict outcomes based off the attribution results. As such, the visual applications forms the bedrock for the other two tools and provides the foundational results and intuition based off which the recommendations and what-if analysis could be better understood. Arcadia Data provides the technological muscle that powers these visual applications and is therefore central to our solution stack. Couple of interesting attributes of visual applications to note here. The structure of reports follows the workflow of a digital marketer. While the meta information displayed by each report is same, the exact details of measures and dimensions are dynamically generated for each client. These reports are very intuitive to interpret into corresponding business insight. We believe that there are 4 essential attributes of a visual application platform. Volume. This is the ability to handle big data reporting cubes. The exact schema and size of the reporting cubes are config and data driven and cannot be restricted owing to dynamic nature of the reports, and therefore they can be and frequently do have huge size. It is therefore essential that underlying infrastructure can scale out. Variety. Since clients come from varied verticals, the exact details of these reports can be very different. The schema can only be described statically at a meta level. Thus, the underlying infrastructure should be powerful enough to be able to express this effectively. Veracity. The complexity of working at a meta level means proper detection of errors during definition and execution phases is necessary. Velocity. All these reports are being continually updated. They do not stay static. So it's essential that underlying infrastructure is able to handle it in a performant way. In addition, the reports need to be embeddable. They should be definable by client-facing solution architect and should not have a steep learning curve. I would like to briefly touch upon the competing solutions that are jostling in the background and where and why they lose out to Arcadia Data in our current requirement landscape. Tableau is a very popular alternative, but its main shortcoming is its inability to handle huge datasets. D3, on the other hand, provides some flexibility, but it requires a huge development effort in an area which is not core to the value addition we excel in. Without a robust way of describing the metastructure or template of the report specification, each client's visual application instance would be a customized piece of offering, which, if done properly, would require us to maintain exact SQL and schema with all specific configurations baked in. We will also have to document all customizations and have to have individual test harness to check for correctness after every refresh. This is human effort, intensive with accompanying increased chances of manual errors and QA issues. It also lowers the threshold for including customizations that fundamentally changes the meaning and semantics of the report that are later very difficult to isolate and debug. What is needed here is a product approach to building reports that work across all clients based on meta properties and constraints. Arcadia Data allows developers to create a single report template that can then be served up across all our clients. Arcadia Data parameterization allows hot swapping configurations such as datasets, filters, and visual metrics dynamically to render individualized reports with metrics and datasets that are pertinent to each specific client. Instead of having hundreds of reports, you can have a dozen or so templates that can be spun up and configured for each client. This reduces management overhead and cost, streamlines operations, improves quality and reproducibility, and preserves the semantics while confidently customizing the reports through configs. I want to now take an example of customer journey report for a fictional client in automotive vertical. As the name suggests, this report gives us a better understanding of the customer's path to conversion. Here is a screenshot that shows a summary view for the number of conversions touched by one or more events, incremental attribution, and incrementality. We have other summary metrics here, like the percentage of conversions that were touched by multiple marketing and multimedia channels. In this example, 53,616 total conversions were touched by marketing in some way. 24,896 or 46% of those conversions were the results of digital marketing efforts, according to MarketShare's calculation of incremental attribution. This number excludes base conversions. Those would have happened without marketing, and conversions due to offline media and non-addressable marketing. 44% of the total marketing touch conversions involve more than one marketing touch. And 4% of the total marketing touch conversions involve touches in more than one marketing channel. Down here, we have number of touches along the conversion pathway. This is helpful to review how many conversions happened with each additional touch and the trends for incrementality. In this example, 57% of all converting customers convert on the first or the only touch. The total marketing incrementality, green line here, which is the increased likelihood for converters to convert based on their engagements with marketing as calculated by MarketShare Neustar, is 45.6% at first touch. Incrementality of the last marketing touch, the yellow line here, how much the latest exposure to marketing in a sequence of touches increased your conversions, is the same amount at first touch, which is the only touch so far at 45.6%. If you move to second touch, the total marketing incrementality and the incrementality of the last marketing touch would start to diverge. We drill down into media channels here, which is what an automotive client is typically interested in, and pursue more information about the channels responsible for the first and the only touched conversions. Position in the pathway and participated conversions by channel table show where channels typically appear in the conversion path and which channels are most involved in the conversions. In this example, the position in the pathway graph shows that search is the only touch in 62% of conversions involving search. Participated conversions by channel shows that search channel is involved in the most number of conversions, 35,333. In contrast, first look at the social channel appears to have a big showing in only touch, but there aren't that many conversions from social. Time to convert graph can be used to find out how many days it takes customers to convert after a media exposure. The time to convert graph confirms that most conversions involving search happen on the same day. That makes sense with so many only touch conversions for search. The paths to convert table here shows detail on various conversion paths. The most common path is the search only with 33,000 odd conversions, 16,000 of which are incrementally attributed to marketing. Now, another client in entertainment vertical will be interested in the same reports, but would want to drill down using a different marketing dimension like publisher. In this slide, we see the same summary view for a fictional entertainment client. 1.6 million total conversions that were touched by marketing. 365,000 or 23% of those conversions were the results of digital marketing efforts. 91% involved touches by more than one marketing media and 42% involved touches in more than one publisher. We also have the number of touches along the conversion pathway here. And when we drill down, we see the detailed reports for each of the publisher, Facebook, Google, Pinterest, etc. In this example, Pinterest is the only touch in 52% of conversions involving Pinterest. The time to convert graph confirms that most conversions involving Pinterest happen on the same day. The most common path in the path report is Facebook only with 769K conversions, 176K of which are incrementally attributed to marketing. One can imagine that the number and domain of dimensions and measures of the reports just shown could be very different for a client from a different vertical, say retail. However, these reports are part of our product offering. While the same report may look very different across our clients in detail, they have a standard meta definition and semantics, and all client instances of the same report must adhere to that standard. To ensure the integrity of these reports across client deployments, we cannot rely on manual configuration of the reports. To allow for customizations and integrity, two conflicting requirements, at the same time, we allow the solutions architect to customize these reports through knobs that are exposed through a higher level config, which is then combined with the template logic of the report, which defines the semantics, and then we generate the exact report parameters. In order to do this, we use Arcadia Data's extremely expressive and powerful report building framework. Here, I'll walk you through a parameterized dynamic report set up as employed by Neustar MTA platform. This is the report editor of Arcadia Data that allows reports to be created by user. We use it to create a report template that will later be instantiated on the fly. On the right, you see all the mathematical logical transformations and all the attributes available for transforming. On the left, we define the measure incremental attribution in template form, which is valid for all clients. It is simply sum of a basic measure from underlying cube. We don't know what that measure is, as it will depend on the client. IA is the formal parameter name, which will be used by our client-specific application to specify the real name of the basic measure later. The literal IA underscore count is the default actual parameter. We really do not use this feature for the default, as all aspects of the report, including the default values, are completely determined by higher level configs, and the underlying cube schema is fluid. So this default value is given a descriptive name hinting at the meaning of the value contained in the measure. So we define the measure here, and here we are defining the dimension, again as a template. EBT dim is the formal parameter. Path length is the descriptive default actual parameter. We want the alias of the formal parameter to be shown as media, again as a default value, which can be overridden using client configuration. The underlying reporting cube's identity is also similarly parameterized. Now let's look at a snippet from the top level config that initiates dynamically at runtime the template we discussed in previous slides. We expect to see instantiation of measures, we call them the metrics here, the dimensions, and the report cube, called dataset in Arcadia terminology, which we have borrowed. In the metric subsection, you can see the formal parameter IA bounded to actual parameter full underscore IE underscore QTY. In the dimension subsection, there is further structure. The user on the UI can interactively select the dimension, which is expressed here with a list of possible actual parameters and their alias. So Arcadia Data's report builder mechanism is highly flexible and expressive and allows for deeply dynamic software-defined report configuration. This, I think, is a good validation that Arcadia Data can be used not only as a base to create ad hoc reports easily, but as a small language to define and program customizable and yet robust reporting product.
Thanks so much, Uma. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll hand it back over to you, Steve, now.
Great. Thank you. That was very in-depth. Thank you for all the explanations. All right, I'll just share my screen now. So I'd like to double click a little bit on Arcadia Data. Uma was very gracious in talking about how they've worked with us to get their applications up and running. I wanted to give a little more background on Arcadia Data for people that are interested. I run marketing here at Arcadia. I've been with the company a couple of years, and I've been in the BI analytics space for about 17, 18 years. So I'll give you some of my perspective as well. The company was started in 2012 from folks that came out of distributed system companies like Teradata Aster, storage from HPE and IBM. And we've really been focusing on how to connect more casual, if you will, business users to the value of these big data platforms that are out there, like Hadoop and Cloud, and more of these distributed scale-out types of platforms. So we've won a number of awards for the innovation in our product, but more importantly, we have very strong customers like Neustar that have done incredible things with our product and are delivering, as Huma said, visual applications out to tens of thousands of users with high user concurrency. So whether that's cybersecurity within financial services, it could be spam detection in telecommunications, marketing analytics in the case of Neustar, or companies like Procter & Gamble. There's a lot of different types of ways that the power of this big data can be brought to large organizations. And if you think about historically where we've come from, everybody's talked about the 3 or the 4 V's. Uma referred to it in her presentation as well. And it really comes down to the data complexity, volume, and speed has increased. The platforms have evolved to handle that in a more flexible, agile way. Ideas like being able to discover insights from data before it's transformed into a normalized model for reporting is something that's really important when you have low business value density of your data and you're trying to find the insights. So this concept of a data lake has really taken hold in a lot of these large scale-out systems. But our point is that you should have your discovery and production applications in one system. So to do that, you really have to look at your BI tools and how can they evolve to take advantage of the open scale-out architectures that are available now and provide that same agility from an end user perspective on the data that sits in these data lakes, modern data platforms, whatever you want to call it. So the question becomes, can your existing BI or analytics tool really stand up to the requirements around big data? And if you're a Game of Thrones fan, this is a really cool scene where Jon Snow kind of charges the battlefield, almost like one man trying to take on this entire army. And that can be what it feels like if you're trying to use a single SMP BI tool on your desktop and trying to harvest all the value of big data that's out there. So back to reality then, really what we see a lot of is companies have invested obviously in what we'll call data warehouse BI tools that were developed in a 2-tier architecture for data warehouses that had a closed proprietary system for good reasons for performance optimization. What that means is you've got to move the data out of the data warehouse to do analytics within that BI tool. So then when you start talking about large volumes of data or complexity, there becomes a scale issue with that and being able to support those users on that amount of data. People wind up sampling data, pulling out extracts, and the old analogy of teach a person to fish directly versus handing them out fishes every time they need an answer to a question. We also talked about the data variety. If you think about set-top box data or semi-structured data coming off of sensors from devices out in the field in JSON format and other structs and arrays, a lot of the metadata describing that data is contained, it's self-contained within the data set. So modern analytics tools can handle that and provide schema on the fly at query runtime without a lot of that upfront modeling that's required. And agility has also been an issue where people talk about bringing processing to the data. That was one of the big things that people talked about when Hadoop entered the scene about 10 years ago, is schema on read versus schema on write. But the reality is, if you're using a legacy BI tool built for data warehouses, you still have to pull the data out of that system, and you lose that agility that really was the promise of these modern data platforms. So that's the challenge we've addressed. At a high level, we provide a scale-out, high-performance analytics platform where we take the concept of a BI server and we push it down onto each individual node in a cluster. So whether that's Hadoop or a cloud environment, we take advantage of the compute resources on these individual nodes, and we run the processing right next to the data. So that gives us extreme performance, scalability, and also very important is security. If you think about it, now you're running your BI, your analytics directly in cluster where the data sits. So you can now allow people to do all the analysis they want to do without ever having to pull data out of the system. This was one of the many reasons why large healthcare companies chose Arcadia Data, was just that ability to keep the data secure in one cluster and turn off the ability to push it out to laptops or desktop environments where someone wants to do analytics. So you have unified security, you still have things like a semantic layer, and you can connect and run this directly on a lot of other data sources. So obviously you're not going to put all your data into one cluster. You're going to want to connect to other things. In some cases, you'll be running a cloud environment, and that's exactly what Neustar does. They run Arcadia directly. I'm not sure what details I can talk about, but they have a cloud-based environment. I won't name vendors, but it's completely cloud-based in their case. And we've also introduced new capabilities for streaming real-time data. So Kafka is an open source Apache project which has become very popular for streaming data, and there's a streaming SQL interface called KSQL that we've integrated with. So now you can have a real-time streaming view in your dashboard with the ability to drill down into all the underlying historical data, all from within one system. So we think about this as a native parallel analytics platform built from the ground up for big data. So it's really changed the way we look at architectures from a BI perspective. And if you contrast this is a little more visual way of describing what I talked about. A traditional two-tier architecture has the BI server outside the cluster, and as we talked about, for someone who wants to go against terabytes or petabytes of data, it's physically impossible to move that data into a single BI server. And yes, you can cluster some of these environments, but it really is not a fully distributed parallel environment, and you're just passing SQL back and forth between the data and the end user. So you have data movement, the modeling, and all the security management becomes quite high for that type of a deployment. There's other quote-unquote big data BI architectures out there where they'll talk about pushing some of that processing down, but in many cases, it's really an edge node BI server or maybe a couple servers that do a lot of that processing and are still moving data between the core data storage and the place where the analytics are done. And again, you're only passing the SQL with no semantic information about filters or aggregations, hash partitions, and other storage schemas or schemes within the platform that can be optimized. So you lose a lot of those optimization capabilities because you're separating the analytic processing from the data storage. Whereas a native architecture takes that same concept of processing, puts it right where the data is. So you can not only push down the analytic processing, but also the semantic modeling is fully pushed down and distributed, which is really huge in terms of the ability to scale not just performance, but as you saw with Huma's example, that ability to do templatizing and dynamic parameter passing all within the cluster without needing to move data around and do physical models separate from logical models and those types of things, as well as security advantages. So at the end of the day, again, think about it as what you would expect from a BI tool where you have semantic modeling, the ability to put business terms on top of table names so that a business user can use the terms they are used to working with. in a very drag and drop environment, and then the ability to create dashboards, analytics, visual applications with context in this type of environment. And a lot of what we're hearing about in the industry right now is the hype around machine learning and artificial intelligence and how we can automate a lot of processes. The way we've incorporated AI into our products is to accelerate time to insight for the end user by recommending things like the best practices for visualization. So within the product, we have a visualization builder. So you're building that visual or dashboard. You can literally click on this little icon, which is a magic wand, and it'll recommend different ways to visualize that data based on the dimensions and measures you chose and the cardinality of that data. And it's not just a thumbnail picture. This is an actual rendering of your data through that visualization technique. And it's literally a palette where, okay, you can see what it looks like, and then you click on the one that best visualizes the data for what you want to achieve in your application. So that's one way that machine learning AI is driving end user ease of use. From a back-end perspective, we talked about unified security. So as you would expect, there's role-based security controls natively within Arcadia Data, but also very uniquely is our ability to inherit security privileges that have already been assigned within the core data platform. So if you're using a project like Apache Sentry or Apache Ranger, once those role-based access controls are defined, we just inherit them automatically within our product. So you don't have to configure security settings in two separate places. It's all in one unified system. From a performance and scalability perspective, the other thing that's unique about Arcadia and what we've done that's different is if you come from the world of BI or OLAP, you've heard about cubes. And typically, I worked for a BI vendor for many years. We would build cubes based on business requirements in advance of providing that to the end users. So IT would have to build those cubes based on what they think the business questions would be. But as we know, as you start to slice and dice and look at data, there's other questions you want to ask. And to add those new dimensions in requires a rebuilding of the cube, republishing, and those types of things. So what we wanted to do when we built Arcadia Data was to give end users direct access to all of the data natively because of the way we're architected, so that native analytics or BI engine runs again directly in the storage tier. And as people are answering questions, we cache data directly in that tier in a data coherent way. So if a question has already been asked more than once, it'll provide instant results back to the next user that asks that same question. But also, if there's patterns or different types of queries that are asked on a recurring basis, we can create what we call analytical views. So think of this as dynamic cube building based on the actual usage of the system. We have this process called smart acceleration that will recommend data structures to be put in place that not only render those dashboards quickly, but give all the drill down paths available that those users have taken in the past in a high performance mechanism. So that gives you 100x better performance because of these analytical views that are created within the system. So again, it's built, but it's done incrementally and dynamically based on actual usage. There's not a huge upfront development time to create something like this. We've validated a lot of these performance benchmarks and concurrency with Enterprise Strategy Group, which is a third-party industry analyst firm. You can get this report from our website, and it'll talk about dashboards and our ability to accelerate them up to 88 times faster for different types of dashboards, whether it's basic, intermediate, or advanced. But more importantly is that user concurrency we've talked about, because again, you've invested typically in these large scale-out systems, and if you're not going to take advantage of the processing power that's there, you're going to create a lot of costs, move data, and all those things. So we can provide end user concurrency directly where the data is stored, and you can see here in this test on the bottom right, we tested effectiveness in this particular benchmark up to 95 concurrent users on the system with a fairly linear performance characteristic and fairly suitable. So that is really, to my mind, the last mile of value that we'll get from these, or that we need to get from these big value or big data systems is in that end user world. This is just a quick view of the UI in terms of how you can select a dashboard, click on the Smart Acceleration button, and the system will derive or build those structures that you can then put into production so that that system runs extremely well for those end users you're deploying it to. Now, I just talked about all the traditional BI things that you would expect, right? Drag and drop environments and visualization, all those types of things on a very unique architecture. But what if you could have BI and search as well in one system, again, without needing to move data? And that's something we just announced last month. And if you think about all the different systems that are out there, at the end of the day, we've been talking about self-service analytics for as long as I've been in the industry, 16, 17 years. But the reality is that it winds up being a power user that typically builds reports. And even if you have some questions to ask, very few people can do this. Really, these systems wind up being power users, or data scientists, data engineers are really the user of these and provide service to end users. And business users continue to email around Excel spreadsheets. One of the jokes we used to have when I worked for one of these traditional BI companies in the past was, we're really just an expensive ETL tool because people just want to pull the data out, stick it in Excel, and manipulate it from there. But what if you had a search window to just ask your questions directly on all of the data without needing to go to a BI power user or build any reports on your own? So if you start with a simple data set like year, state, and population, right, and just want to ask a question of what was the population in California in a certain year, our system can automatically look at those dimensions and render back an answer. So you might expect that from a search engine, but really we're talking about natural language search blended with visualization. So if you want to look at population trends for different states, you can type that in, and again, natural language, it'll pull back and render a visualization that shows that trend that you're looking for. You can go on to put in logic and different expressions to look at population greater than a certain amount. The system will understand that and bring back a color-coded map, in this case showing states with a population greater than that amount you put in. You notice the color underlines under the different elements that are dimensions or measures in your data. And if you want to look at a specific type of visualization, we have over 30 different visual types in the system. You can specify that, and it'll bring back a visualization that renders that data for you. So again, it's a very simple way to start to any person that can speak the language. We can also do it through voice response, right? If you turn that on your machine, and that's a way to start finding and exploring data in your data lake environment, in addition to a lot of the analytic or visual applications that a company like Neustar may build for their customers. So Arcadia was really founded, again, on the idea of getting value from big data with a BI interface, but also advanced things where we're using AI and machine learning to drive natural language search, things like instant visuals that make it faster for people to build the visualizations, all on a native parallel architecture that can be accelerated to deploy this to hundreds and thousands of users in a connected way in the ecosystem. So with that, we've got about 15 minutes left. I'll leave this slide up in case you want to learn more about Neustar market share, some of the things I talked about recently for search-based BI, or if you want to get started with Arcadia, we have a downloadable free forever product that you can use on your laptop and play with the visualization components of it. So I'll leave that up and just pop up to see if we have some questions in the environment here. So again, you should have a chat window to bring up any of those questions that you've got. So I have a question here for Uma, and that is, how long did it take you to get Arcadia up and running in your environment? Uma, are you on mute? Can you hear me?
Yes. So we started with doing a POC with Arcadia a couple of years back, and we discussed the requirements that we had for this product approach to reporting. And I believe it took us it took us a couple of months to make sure that we understood each other, and we were then able to use this capability that Arcadia provides in order to build our templates and as well as build the configuration part in our application, which provides the values to all of the parameters in the templates. Once that was done, once the initial part was done, incrementally adding a new template is very simple now for us. It just takes a report designer to build the template in a day or so, and we register it with the system and take it from there.
Very good. And about those templates, are these I guess, dynamic parameterization? templates, are they included with Arcadia, or how much custom development was done to create those? I mean, is this something that anybody can configure now in their environment?
Yes, that is part of the standard Arcadia offering, and anybody can go ahead and create those templatized reports.
Very good. One other question that came in is how many people are administering Arcadia, are administrators for Arcadia data in your system today? And can you contrast that with how many administrators it would have taken with a different type of non-native analytics platform?
So we have one product manager who is responsible for creating all of these report templates for our clients, and we have a pretty standard set of report templates now. It's only when we determine that there are more kinds of reporting or visualizations that we might need for a specific client, we add on to those reporting templates. So this set is more or less fixed, right? The reporting templates. So the only customization which we now need is creating those configurations, the JSON snippet which we saw in our in the presentation. So for that also that is done by each client for each client by a solutions architect who is the representative of that client.
I see.
Hey, Steve, this is Satya, the head of engineering at Neustar. Just to elaborate on that question, so I think was the question just about like the programming and all that, because there's an army of people who are required to maintain the reporting system. So we do have IT people, we have DBAs who maintain the system, integrators. Then we have folks who are like, preparing these reports, and then programmers, right? So if you really look at it, it's like a variety of folks who are required to do it. Uma was, I think she gave the number of people who are maintaining the system now. It's like a product manager who takes the business requirements, creates these templates. There's no reason why a business user can himself create these reports by themselves. And then there is literally zero IT, zero DBAs, or any of the maintenance folks who are maintaining Arcadia. And then more importantly, there are no programmers, right? We don't have programmers who are also at coding. So there is a bunch of software engineers that we eliminate. If I really contrast that with what could have happened if we didn't have the system in place, I would say that there would be like, at least 8 to 10 resources minimally when we have a vendor in place. And then if we don't have a vendor, then that would easily be a 10 or 15, 20% team, along with the software engineers and the vendors and the system folks. Yeah.
I see. Okay. Very good detail. Makes sense. There's another question here about Arcadia data, asking what's the difference between Arcadia Instant and the main product. Arcadia Instant, as I mentioned earlier, is really just a visualization component. So you can run it on your local desktop. You can connect to different sources and try all the different visualization types and building the dashboards and analytic applications, if you will. What you don't get with that is you don't get the acceleration, the smart acceleration, the ability to deploy it on a large-scale cluster and support production workloads. But it's, again, free forever. You can download it, and some people use it as a replacement for a desktop BI tool to get started and play around with that. Okay, I don't see any other questions, so we can give some time back to the audience. I want to thank both Huma, our main presenter, and Satya for joining from Neustar. We've worked with them for many years. Very proud of the system they've built, and really appreciate your insights that you shared with us today. Thank you all for attending the session today. Again, this will be available on recording, and the slides are also available if you'd like to look back on anything. Thanks a lot, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.